Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is the General's Talk featuring Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar and Lieutenant General Satish Dua. Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar, PVSM, AVSM, VSM, a retired Director General of the Artillery. He has deep knowledge and understanding of strategic affairs, now a professor in the Aerospace Department of the IIT Madras, a speaker and an author. Lieutenant General Satish Dua, PVSM, UYSM, SM, VSM, has served as the Chief of Integrated Defence Staff to the Chairman of the Chiefs of Staff Committee, a former Corps Commander 15 Corps, today a speaker and an author of a book, India's Brave Hearts. General Shankar, General Dua sir, welcome to the General's Talk. From our last episode on Pakistan, lot more has happened. The country is coming close to quite a dangerous scenario for the not just for the country itself, but for the neighborhood and the region altogether. So when one looks at the scenario there are only two possible outcomes for the chaos right now. They will be heading into elections sometime or the other, 6 months, 9 months, 1.5 years, and that is obviously a big fight right now which is taking place. Two outcomes: one, Imran Khan comes back to power; two, Imran Khan does not come back to power. These are the two things. Now,
Yeah,
what
I agree.
happens when something like that takes place in that country, sir? That is something that we will analyze today. And to start with, General Dua, sir, what do you say to a situation which is brewing right now? Just to give a brief outlook of the situation in the country, how do you think the situation will go to the election point of time, sir?
Well, as we see the situation now, or what is obtaining at the moment, is that Imran Khan has been roosted. The opposition has two strong rival political parties have come together to oust Imran Khan with the support of the military's backing is there for this the presently ruling coalition. That is the political situation. So obviously, at the present moment, at least, the politico-military equation seems to be stable. But on the other hand, economy is in total doldrums. I mean, I don't have to elaborate on that. They are staring at FATF with renewed vigor, FATF slipping into the blacklist with renewed vigor. It may not happen, but I mean that's the ever-hanging threat. Diplomatically, they will have to start making amends. In their international relations, they are getting a raw end from the important Islamic countries, and they really need to mend their fences with the US. They need to come out of some doldrum dynamics with China, because as we see even yesterday, uh, this attack that took place where 3 Chinese nationals have died in the Institute of Confucius, that and many more such things are happening. I believe they are questioning the CPIC authority, or sort of drawing it down, things like that. So all in all, uh, Pakistan dynamics is not in a happy place. There's a new government in place. Their own cracks might start showing after some time, now that their common objective of taking out Imran Khan has been achieved. So, to my way of looking at things, this is how the situation is at the moment, Janishankar. Shankar.
Yeah, I'll just add one point to whatever he said. When all this is happening, the current government is trying to stabilize the situation, do something, with the backing of the army. Imran Khan has almost on the election trail. He's addressing, jalsas in their word, right, and drawing huge crowds, and he's feeding a narrative that these people are a foreign-funded, government and things like that, and that's a very emotive kind of a thing. So where does this go?
Yeah.
Will that leave this government stable with any room to do any deal? Will anyone else invest in this government politically, not financially, politically? So their word, everyone is expecting an election, right? So no one will undertake any political initiative with the current government. So it's all nebulous. So like you said, the necessity is to examine Pakistan in a post-election scenario. Okay, and this period of chaos will continue. So till it collapses or it till runs out. So we need to look at the post-election scenario, which I think is a more critical part of the whole story.
Done, sir. Let's go to that, but just a short word on the army, sir. Hod says we are neutral. Now,
look, there's nothing neutral in the army as far as Pakistan is concerned. Pakistan army has never been neutral. The problem is, which we didn't touch, is that the Pakistani army itself is fraying at the edges with power centers coming up and all that, no matter what they say or not say. So, and we are looking at Pakistan army, which has been a glue which binds the nation. If that glue starts fraying, things are a little dicey, right? So, and plus not only the Chinese killings, we've also seen a whole lot of other terrorist incidents which have happened. I was just reading a number. In the past 3 months, they've lost about 100 soldiers in various incidents.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a lot. So we need to look ahead. And you also see a lot of marginalization of Pakistan in the larger global turmoil. No one talks of Pakistan today. So much is happening in Ukraine and so much is happening everywhere else, and so many other things are happening. No one bothers about Pakistan. So it's in a real mess. So that's where it is. Yeah.
Then, Dua sir, before I, give you the opportunity to put your point across about the Forge, just one thing, sir, the battle of the elections is basically for the appointment of the army chief in November. What do you think about that, sir?
Well, General Bajwa is on ending his second term, extension of 3 years now. So, to my mind, though there is a lot of talk about him seeking an extension, so far no chief other than Musharraf and Ziaul Haq have actually gone beyond the second term or an extension. So to my mind, I don't think that it will happen, because at the present moment, like Ravi Shankar also alluded to it, Pakistan army is a glue that binds the nation fine, but it's a stabilizing factor. But presently there are a lot of dissensions within the army, bound to happen, because full generation of leadership has been passed over because General Bajwa got an extension. So, imagine if he tries for another extension. So that will there will be many more disgruntled generals who are hoping to reach the higher position. So the fact of the matter is, I think you're right. The elections have to take place to be able to decide on the general. On the next army chief. Sorry. It is to be he's to be appointed in November. So hopefully we will see some results. This is in my view, I think, before that.
Let's now come down to the brass tacks, sir. Post-election scenario. As General Shankar, you mentioned, Imran Khan is already on the election mode. The kind of rhetoric that he's creating is about "main nahi to koi aur nahi." Basically, is in a simple gist, it's just that. Although the words used are much more harsher than that, but that's the main gist. Now, coming to that election scenario, sir, let's talk about the factor when Imran Khan actually wins the election. So let's take that as a phase one. General Shankar, sir, would you like to take this?
Yeah, we'll take it. And then, if he comes back into power, he comes back with a lot of authority and, power. I mean, when I say power, in the sense, concentration of power. And then he'll be difficult to dislodge in the short run. Normally, they say, the army will always control the government of Pakistan. That might not happen. It is just possible that first and foremost, the equation between the army and the government will change, because this man would have probably grown beyond the army.
It will also depend on the number of seats that he gets.
Yeah. Okay. If he comes back with a great majority, anything over 50% seats on his own, then there's going to be a problem between the army and the and Imran Khan. That's the first, fundamental equation in Pakistan. The spin-off of this is, it depends on, by then will there be a new chief already appointed by the previous government, or he has to appoint the chief. So that will create its own problem, and that will have a spin-off on the army of its own. Right? I mean, that's going to destabilize the army hierarchy and, a lot of other things which will. So these two things put together will not make Pakistan a very stable country. And then we have to see, if you look at complete tenure of Imran Khan, the 3 years which he's had, he's been compared to Trump without politics, without economics. He's taken the country's economics backwards, but that we'll discuss separately, right? And he doesn't have an economic policy. He doesn't have any clue of economics which he has displayed. He has no clue. I mean, he believes in my way or the highway. There's no democracy. It's a stated fact, recorded fact that he's hardly attended 10 or 12 parliament sittings. He doesn't let the democratic way to proceed. So it's going to be a rubber stamp democracy, right? And but that's one part. Then the fact is that he has made a bargain with the religious people for quite some time. He's a newfound religious fanatic. That's why he's got the moniker of Taliban Khan, right? So how will that play out? And if he comes back into power, it has to be with the help of the radical religious elements in Pakistan. So you're going to have a lot of religiosity, poor economics, friction with the army. So the overall politics of Pakistan will be high octane propaganda or high octane, what shall I say, big talk, with very little to do on ground. And the fact that all the while he's maligning USA. He's going to come. How will he mend fences with the USA? If they don't mend fences with the USA, there's going to be a problem. And by then, if these attacks against Chinese and all continue, the situation is bad. How will he rectify the situation with China? So all these issues will be there. Now he's spoken very highly of India, but we all know he's an India hater. So we're going to have problems if he comes back. Okay.
But,
I mean, I've given one side of the story. What happens if he doesn't come?
Let me try and give you the other side. I mean, I'm just trying to speak from the other side of the same scenario. That is, if Imran Khan does come to power, he could also, I mean, now talking of the other side, he could also be a more chastised Imran Khan, especially if his numbers are less, the number of seats that he wins are less. But he's the single PTI is the single largest party. In that case, he will perhaps be a chastised prime minister. He would have perhaps learned, or maybe he's shown, forcibly shown the mirror that this is how he will have to behave, whether it is the army or whether it is the US and other international relations. Because economy is going to be one thing we can talk about separately, but economy is something that whoever comes to power or whoever remains in power, whenever, economy is a big millstone around his neck. So economy is not doing great. Now we are looking at a situation. To add to this, will the politico-military equation add to the problems, or does it actually help solving the problem? So, I mean, the other side could also be played out. Depends on what is the kind of mandate he gets. We are again talking about the situation where Imran Khan does come back to power. And secondly, has the army chief been appointed before that or not yet? Because even
that's a very key issue.
Yeah, because if he has to appoint the army chief, then again he can go back on his favorite fairs, general fairs. So if that happens, then again the army might be sort of up in arms, so to say. So those are the kind of dynamics that are likely to play out.
Yeah, what do you think if, let's say, Imran Khan doesn't come back and a coalition comes back? What happens then?
So if that's the other scenario that Aadi also spoke about, and if that happens, so now there is another leader in power. Now we are not very sure if both these parties can actually remain together to form a coalition. That is a little unlikely to my mind if after elections have taken place, because they are arch rivals.
Yeah,
so we are talking of a situation where either PPP or PML and forms the government. And if they form the government, to my mind, they will, now that PTI at least is a force to reckon with, if it doesn't come to power. That means if it is going to be split three ways, then I don't think these two parties today, the way Imran Khan has hit the election trail, the way Imran Khan is making a virtue out of his sacking, the way Imran Khan is being seen in the minds of public, the voters, as someone who is calling the Americans out, the one who took panga, or who called the Pakistan Fauj out. So I mean, he in many quarters he is being seen as a crusader. So what I'm trying to get at, that I don't think he will be a passover. He may not get the full majority. That in if it is the two other parties combined together, then there will be a weak government, because their dissensions will start. Their
Not
dissensions
only
will start
dissension.
showing.
No, not only dissension. The fact is that if they have to come as a coalition,
Yeah.
it means that PTI has still got power. I mean, it's
Yes.
got a lot of this thing, and they'll create problems for the new this thing.
That is
Today,
yes.
both these parties have got together because they want to throw Imran out. But after elections, will they come together? That's a question. Okay, even if they do come together, it's going to be a fire hall. There's going to be bargaining, and this bargaining will continue. And
Yeah.
then they'll have, and if this bargaining continues, the army will start becoming the third empire there. Okay, so now that political scenario makes it a weak government. So what if you sum it up, let me sum it up. If there is Imran Khan coming back, you'll have a very strong government with a my way or the highway attitude, with probably no great sense of economics and a lot of religiosity. If it's a potpourri government which comes in, it'll be a weak government. And with the army doing the third umpire role. I mean, this is how the political situation will be. I think that's how it is.
Or a slight, in slight modification to what you said, if Imran Khan comes to power, maybe he acquires a set of good advisors, because all said and done, he would have learned something from his.
I grant. That I grant.
So if
that
he
he might.
takes some good advisors as far as economy is concerned, if he also follows sane advice as far as not upsetting the relations with army a little too much is concerned, he might be able to sort of
Let's see.
build back a better party, which may be better than his 1.0 version.
Sir, but one big question still lies. Now let's say the Imran Khan doesn't come to power. You've got Imran Khan on the outside. These guys would be gunning for him for some case or the other, foreign funding, there are 50,000 things that these guys will create. He still got the power of creating chaos, and which is what he's doing right now.
Yeah, that's what made the government weak.
And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, any government where Imran Khan is not part of the government, because of the fact what you highlighted, that he's got the nuisance value, he'll make the government weak.
Also, I don't think Imran Khan really has any legacy issues or any big corruption scandal on his name. He doesn't carry that baggage like the other two parties.
Yeah.
He doesn't despite being thrice married, he doesn't really have a family to propagate. I mean, he's not really propagating his children or nephews or anybody else.
The dynasty factor is not there.
Dynasty factor is missing, and that is one of his biggest strengths, which the people will vote for, because that shows a clean man in politics. Incompetence is one thing, integrity is another thing.
Socio-politically, sir, just let's close the our discussion now. Major question that I'd like to ask you, because whatever said and done, Pakistani society is today divided quite a bit, especially after the Taliban takeover. There's a certain section of the society which has become a little more extreme. We can see that with the kind of actions that took place in Sialkot and many other places. The socio-political factor and the social stability in the country is kind of wavery right now. And I'm not saying that because we are from India. And that's something which is, even the Pakistanis agree to it, that there is a huge amount of this thing. So that's point one. Point two is about their own stability on the Western side. Of course, with India, we've discussed before in our previous we are kind of in a hands-off sort of a scenario. How do you think they're going to take this the western part of this thing and handle their political socio situation within the country, which is on the teetering edge with the organizations like the TLP and stuff like that. Jaldua sir, would you like to start?
Look, to my way of looking at things, though you haven't asked me that, more than the socio-political situation, I think it is economy that has to be addressed in a hurry. And you may be right to say that that's a separate issue and this is a separate issue. What I'm trying to say is, if you mend the economy, economy starts showing some improvement, the socio-economic thing the dynamics is actually going to continue. Whether economics is good or bad, that's a long haul. Whereas if this, whichever is the government, starts showing some recovery in the economy, I think they would have been more successful than not. So my way of looking at it is the issues of Balochistan, the issue of radicalization, that he's ceded power to fundamentalist groups, the issue of the on both sides of the dynamics of the Durand line with the Pashtun problem. They are going to stay. They are not going to be resolved in a hurry. You can only take them up or down. But economy needs to be addressed first, and I think along with that, the international relations need to be mended. They are actually on a very weak ground.
Very
and
weak
I can
wicket,
elaborate on that after General Shankar's book.
See, their economy. Let's look at the economy. It doesn't matter, the way I look at it, it doesn't matter if Imran Khan comes or any other government comes. They will have their own problems, right? If you look at the economy today, the fundamentals are poor. Today. I mean, that is a no-brainer. But let me highlight a couple of fundamentals. Pakistan was traditionally a exporter of wheat. Today, it is a net importer of wheat. Okay? And this is a net importer of wheat when there's going to be a global food shortage. Already prices of foodstuffs are going up. So, the overall food security situation in Pakistan is going to go down. Their current account deficit to import versus export has doubled in the recent past. I'm not talking of years, months. And this is not going to change whether with this government or the next government. Then the IMF says you reverse all the subsidies. If this government or any government reverses the subsidies, the cost of living for the average Pakistani will go so high that there'll be chaos. So no one will do it. So if you don't reverse the subsidies, then there's no stabilization. If they keep consuming, whatever they're consuming, they're not producing, they have to import it from outside, which they can't pay for. So they're caught in a whirlpool. This government also will not do anything, undo anything which the previous government has done, and the new government which comes in after elections also cannot do it. So economically, they are not coming out. Plus the fact water is a perpetual problem which is in Pakistan. So you put all these together, add the political turmoil into this, add the security situation which is going bad, add the fact that their debts are increasing. After all, if two Chinese chaps have, or three Chinese people have been blown up yesterday and some were blown up in the Dasu Dam sometime back, and plus other things are happening, the Chinese will say, yeah, bhai, paisa wapas do at some point. So their economy is going to get hit. And if their economy is going to get hit, the chances of revival of Pakistan are difficult.
And their traditional friends, so can I just interject to add to what you're saying? And their traditional friends and allies are cutting corners. Now, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, they are not willing to help them anymore. In fact, it is interesting to see a couple of days ago when Prime Minister Modi went to J&K and he spoke to that panchayat on the Panchayat Day. He also brought out that 38,000 crore worth of deals and MOUs have been signed for foreign investment into J&K. Where are the foreign investments coming from? They're coming from these countries.
UAE.
so if it is coming from these the Islamic countries, UAE mainly, it is the MR group and the Lulu group and all. If they are, it's a very smart move. If they are investing in Kashmir and in India, and particularly in J&K, tomorrow when Pakistan raises these issues in OIC or some other places, now there is a conflict of interest for as far as these investors are concerned. They would not want to be in a situation, if they have invested there, then they would want better stability there. They
Well,
don't want.
stability. They'll not.
So,
They'll
so
not
the
allow
point we have
Pakistan
to.
to really do what they're doing now.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to say, why I brought out this thing in we are discussing Pakistan, that such are the things which is weakening their base as far as economic assistance is concerned. So we are not only looking at IMF and FATA, we are looking at these things. When China gave $3 billion, the kind of stringent conditions they laid on them, and they deducted the first installment when they gave them the amount. I mean, that's of interest. I mean, that's the kind of dynamics that is playing out over here.
And you Pakistan and the way it has vilified USA is not going to come back in a hurry,
Absolutely.
right? You see, the Gulf is not responding. Look, what are the three sources of funding for Pakistan? One is Gulf, second is US, and third is China.
China.
All three are kafa with Pakistan at this point of time, and it's not going to change. You'll slowly see, this is my way of looking at it. Already voices are there that they have to start looking east towards India for economic revival. If it's a coalition government, of a PTI come PP with seasoned politicians who understand politics, the chances of making a deal with India are better. I mean, that's my view. It could be the other way around. If it is a guy like Imran Khan, who fundamentally doesn't like India, though he's spoken well about India, quoting India, but he has not missed a trick in talking about other issues with India. He still talks of RSS and this and that openly. Okay, so he might not allow go back. Then what happens to Pakistan? So there's a problem. Okay, so whichever way you look at it, economy is
like we discussed last time also. I think what makes eminent sense for them is to do trade with India.
trade with India.
Trade,
that for that they have to
trade, allow transit to the road, the Tapi pipeline. All of them will generate revenue and bring in a modicum of stability to them. Also, will improve their international relations, not only with India, with all the others, as we just discussed.
Yeah.
So,
and the first thing for that is Kashmir.
Kashmir. Yeah. So obviously they have to show. See, Kashmir today actually is in a much better place, in the sense that we've got a better handle on violence. It is never going to be zero. So it is below an acceptable threshold. Now, what they're doing with the hybrid terrorists and all that is trying to keep the pot simmering, I mean, not boiling. They're just trying to keep it activated. So for them to get that on a back burner, to better the relations which will help their country economically, is not such a big deal at the moment. I mean, they today that is going to fetch them better dividends rather than keeping the Kashmir pot boiling.
And there's another thing. It's not only keeping the Kashmir pot boiling is at a cost now.
Yeah.
Yes. You look at the western border. Today, there's an article where says that there are relations between Afghanistan, the Taliban and Pakistan are deteriorating. They've had to use air force there. They've had to send drones there. Every day they're losing people. The TTP operates from there. There's Baluch people operate from there, right? The statements coming out from each are contradiction to each other. Pakistan is trying to get international aid into Taliban, and Taliban is doing whatever it wants. So this whole thing is going to go bad, and increasingly they have to put a lot of security forces there. If they want to put security forces there, economy is bad. They can't start triggering Kashmir, where UAE is putting money. Okay, so they're in a bad situation, and this situation can only get worse.
Both very, interesting scenarios which land up into the same bag, which says Pakistan ki halat nazuk hai, and that's something that I think Pakistanis have been told since the birth of the country. But this time, I think it is real that the Pakistan ki halat actually nazuk hai. There is not much that can be done in terms of anything. It's a pity when you look at a prime minister who probably would not know which one target should he set in first. Get his own chair right, speak to the army, speak to internationally, get his economy right, or get the terrorists into place. I think there's just so much happening in that country. It's a whole world of geopolitics in itself, and that doesn't help its game around
Yeah,
the world. And I think both of you have also brought that out in very different aspects of international relations, political, socio-political relations, and of course, the biggest of them all, which is the forge. Sir, thanks so much. Sir, please.
hey, wait.
Can I just add sort of a sting in the tail before we leave? What you said is fine, and we've also discussed this. But let us not be in a hurry to write off Pakistan. Because there are, okay, so we discussed how they are in a bad position, bad place. But they have certain strengths, and we cannot wish them away. We must understand that. One is location. Their location still remains the same. It is a geostrategic location that they have. And it is that location that the US wanted them as a frontline state. Okay, the utility is marginalized after they move out of Afghanistan, but still it remains against China, and their position remains. They have a very professional army. I mean, we have to sort of acknowledge it. And second, I mean, because most of the Islamic world doesn't have it this way. And third, let's not forget, the only Islamic country that has nuclear weapons. Today, we know the value of nuclear weapons when we are seeing the Russia-Ukraine war unfolding, and a lot of commentaries about how Libya and Ukraine and others gave it up. So, the world will not let Pakistan become a failed state easily. And that's what we discussed in both the scenarios. We just discussed, in our view, the options as to how Pakistan can effect a comeback.
Absolutely. There's Shankar, you wanted to mention something.
Yeah. Same thing what he mentioned. Pakistan still has its fundamental strengths, right? Fundamental strength. Hey, let's not wish it away. What we have to see is it's got a set of internal problems.
Yeah.
It has lost relevance in the international stage because the international problem is now shifted to Ukraine, and the focus will go to Taiwan. No one is interested in its great geostrategic location. People have forgotten about Afghanistan. So what we need to understand is it's going to go through a period of weakness and instability for some time. It is this fundamental strength which it has in terms of it being a professional army, it having being a nuclear state, which will make it survive. How this will play out in a situation with India is what we have to monitor.
Yes.
Right, and we also have to understand that in this period, as Pakistan is going into this kind of turbulence, India is getting stronger, right, internationally. So we have to see how do we handle in Pakistan. We might seek a global stage and center stage in global geopolitics, rise of India, all that. But we need to see, because this is our neighbor. You can choose your friends, but you can't wish away your neighbor. So how will you handle Pakistan is the bigger question for us, given all these uncertainties. That to me is the most important question.
I think that question we could actually take up in a little bit of a detailed discussion as to what are the options in front of India in the next round of discussion of, I would call this a Pakistan watch. We could look at something like that and see what India could do to, one, protect its interests, and two, see that Pakistan does not go into the abyss On that note, sir, thank you so much for a great discussion. And till next time, Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you.
Jai Hind.